I love this bloke. Trevor Long, all about technology, everythingfortheman.com is the website. Lovely to see you, great man.
Good to see you, mate.
Now, previously you were on... last time you were on at the same time with Kyle, and you've done the Today Show that day. Is this the highlight of the day? Or
this is the absolute highlight of my day.
Excellent.
Okay? No fear, no favour, no question. I've done nothing else, basically.
God love you. Now, look, how well prepared is this bloke? We wanted to talk back about the technology of the past 10 years, right? He's got the gear, he's got the notes, so let's race through this stuff. Oh!
2010.
Wow.
The iPhone 3GS.
Wow.
Okay? Do you remember that?
That is really small.
A, it's really small. B, it was revolutionary at the time. And that was the... they had the iPhone. We didn't get that. They had the iPhone 3G and the iPhone 3GS. So that was
this was our phone?
That was our phone.
This was what we were showing off. This was at parties going, oh, look at me.
If it wasn't that, it was this.
Oh, God.
The BlackBerry Bold. Okay?
God.
That one doesn't turn on, but that's what we were doing 10 years ago. Wow. We were tapping away on what looked like a really cool, exciting BlackBerry that had a touchpad. It was amazing.
You're very good at that.
But the iPhone came out and obviously has completely changed. Like, it's hard not to say that the iPhone is the defining piece of technology for the decade.
Absolutely.
Because it's with us all the time. Whether you talk about Samsung or Google or anyone else, everything they do is kind of in some way emulating what Apple started with the iPhone.
But also, I'm looking at a very dodgy camera. I'm looking at it like this is the stuff that, again, people lost their
Take that photo.
over.
We'll see if we can get it off later and put it on your Insta.
If we can, all right. Yeah,
but they did. They literally lost their minds over the iPhone because, remember, 10 years ago, we were only learning to pinch and zoom, right? Yeah. I remember doing courses showing people how to use like maps and showing them if you moved your fingers in and out, the photo or the map would zoom in and out. This was revolutionary.
But I remember 10 years ago, weren't they telling us that, the human eye can only take this much and this thing's getting... And we've sort of supercharged from there. But what about Samsung as well? Because over the past 10 years, Samsung have... well, it feels like that they go stroke for stroke with Apple and end up beating them.
That's the Samsung Galaxy S2. It's a rather small device when you compare it to what they're doing now. Again, it's all about size, right? Yeah. We're getting bigger screens, we're getting more battery, getting more power. There's more to what we can do with our smartphones, and there's a genuine, it's not even a trend, but there's a genuine desire for these bigger screens.
How big a whack for Samsung was that battery business? Where did you see them sort of going like this and then it's flat?
Honestly, of all the stories of the decade around tech, I think it's one of the best recoveries I've ever seen, because it should have ruined the company. I mean, they had phones exploding, but it was a particular style of their phone. It was the Note, and that was a very niche audience. That audience is so loyal. They went, oh, okay, we'll send it back to you, send us something else. Wow. And then the next year when they came out and said, you know what, this is what went wrong, and they investigated, here's what went wrong, here's what we're doing to fix it, and this is... I mean, they were very honest about it. They were open and they recovered beautifully. They're absolutely the #1 smartphone company in the world. The
explosion of tablets over the past 10 years too.
Again, this came out 10 years ago, the original iPad.
Wow.
Right, so April 2010.
Very heavy compared to what we're used to now.
And I remember saying it was heavy and people going, don't be ridiculous, it's amazing. Because it is amazing. Again, before the tablet, we had laptops, were as good as it got portability-wise. And so you've now got this thing that you hold in your hand and you can open up an entire web page and an entire book or whatever it is, and you're getting this bigger screen experience. You've got this keyboard that's almost, easy to type on, and it created this, complete revolution. Steve Jobs was a visionary for these things, and I think that what the iPad did was create this huge market. We've now got so many tablets, Microsoft, Samsung, they're all doing it, but generally the market was created 10 years ago by that device.
But, OK, you've seen the different refinements, updates of all of these different types of phones. The knock, I suppose, is that, there's no big oh, wow moment, but, geez, we're spoiled. I mean, like they invented the wheel, then they refined the wheel. They're not going to invent the wheel every 2 years. Yeah,
I mean, the best thing that happens with the wheel these days is we're talking about tyres that don't need air to run flat. I mean, the wheel hasn't changed in how many decades, right? The tablets, the smartphones, it's an evolution of a thing, but we had the revolution. So, I don't expect the tablet to change much in the future. In fact, tablets sales went like this. It was amazing for 3 years. And then what happened was we realised that these things last a long time. You don't need to get a new one every 2 years or 3 years. My kids were still using an iPad 2 for a very, very long time before we went to the next one up. they last a long time. So the replacement cycle is not long. It's not a short period.
Now, I know that it has been one of the tech stories, if not, well,
Yeah.
social media, right? What started off as, well, what felt like fun feels like an absolute punish for a lot of people these days, myself included. Twitter for me came and went as a thing I cared about. Facebook you still have for the family. To me, it's about Instagram because there's not as many loonies there.
I'm catching you slowly. You know, literally, the Twitter... See, now, these things were around longer than 2010. So Facebook and Twitter were around, you know, late 2000s, so 2007, 8. But they really hit their straps in this last decade. Now, if you look at Instagram's rise, remember also Instagram is owned by Facebook, so don't think you're escaping anything by going to Instagram. But it changed the way we looked at social media. It was more about the picture. It was about creating or capturing a moment and sharing it, which is possible on all the other platforms. But there's just something simple, personal and direct about Instagram, which is keeping it on the charts. Instagram was the #1 most downloaded iPhone app this year.
Wow.
Yeah. Facebook, way down the charts, like 10. Yeah. Snapchat, somewhere there. Twitter, not even on the radar. And so I think we're seeing this kind of trend towards going... The mood of Twitter, for example, is just horrible now, and there's no direct benefit. There's been no major user growth in Twitter. I don't think there's any financial gain in advertising on Twitter and those things. So I think Twitter may have reached its absolute plateau. It won't die, but it'll just pitter away, and those people will continue arguing.
That little silo will keep screaming at itself.
Correct.
But, you know, it's like, the internet version of Radio National, which seems to have always sat at about 3%. Right? Just always Auntie Fran there in the team.
Ratings never lie.
No, they never do. Also, something that's changed is not just the devices, but the power of the networks that are pushing them. We're on the verge of 5G, but let's not pretend 4G didn't happen.
That's right. 4G was created in this last decade. I mean, that phone, when it came out, was a 3G phone. This was still exceptional. 4G wasn't around until 2011-12 for all the networks to roll out. So it shows that those technologies are decade long. You know, 4G was created in this last decade. 5G is only just being created. And while it is there and it does exist, it's, neither here nor there right now, genuinely. It will be the next big thing for the next decade. But it's amazing to think that on those original devices, we were getting okay speeds. But what we're getting now is ridiculous, to think that the information that's at our fingertips is now literally fast and downloading.
Well, and again, for people that'll be half watching this and sort of going, well, No, but I'm saying, they've got busy lives, getting ready for bed, all the rest of it. It does happen around the country. Got a flight to catch. We know we're on everywhere. You go, geez, it can't get better than 5G. Well, we thought it couldn't get better than 3G. It couldn't get better than 4G. So, look, let's not pretend where we sit in 10 years' time, but...
They're talking about 6G. It'll be a thing, but it's more... again, people talk about speed. It's not really about speed. It's about the efficiency of the network. And the uses of 5G are not about you and me downloading things. It's about connected cars and traffic lights and all these amazing things
Internet
that need...
of Things.
Paulie, I'm very proud. It's about those things being connected without any fear of favour, and that's why 5G is important.
Now, also, the way that we have listened and consumed music has really changed.
I mean, do you remember buying CDs? I mean, it wasn't... 10 years ago, we were still getting through our CD collection, putting it into iTunes.
Well, if I did, I'd buy a Sony CD. God love you, Dennis. We love you, brother.
Putting our CDs into an iTunes library, the iTunes library, because of the iPod, which, it became integrated into the iPhone and the like, putting our CDs, it was our collection. We owned this collection. So in just 10 years, sounds crazy, but in just 10 years, we've gone from a situation where we own a collection of music to now we have access to it all. So for $11 a month, $17 if you're a family, you can choose any song in the world and just get it. And that is a revolutionary change in the way the music industry works and in the way we consume it. And Paul, it's exactly the same for entertainment.
Yeah.
Think about Netflix.
Yeah, of course.
Think about Stan. Think about KO. All these different things that exist now that are instant, subscription-based. The thing that I would worry about thinking about is 10 years ago, how many things were you paying out every month and what was the cost? And now add it up and look at what you're paying for every month. It's a huge, essentially, burden on the budget. You've really got to want those things to be able to pay for them.
Yeah, but also a lot of that subscription, that sort of web-based stuff also relies upon a show to get you in, and then hopefully you'll forget that it takes that little bite
That's
every
what it's all about.
every month or so. Also, I suppose you know, the wanky term is the gig economy, but the share economy, and lots of different ways that has revolutionised everything from where you'll go on holidays to, you know, basically the taxi industry effectively getting blown up.
The taxi industry, the food delivery industry, you know, Uber. In Australia, it's Uber. In America, it's really Lyft and Uber. There's a company in America called Lyft with a Y, which is probably just as big as Uber. But that battle that occurred just a few years ago over the taxi industry, you know, that's a huge thing for a startup like Uber to win. And they've essentially won that battle nationally. The Uber Eats situation, and Macca's is doing very well with their app as well. But you know, I get Uber Eats a little bit at the office, and I noticed the other day there was at least 3 Uber Eats cars came to, you know, my area where there's a bunch of people working in just half an hour.
Oh, wow.
And it's changed the way we look at, that's changing local businesses, it's changing local restaurants for the good or bad, who knows? We're not going to know really about that for probably another 5 years, especially when you look at Uber and you go, they floated on the stock market and they basically said, don't know if we'll make money. Well, how do you compete with that?
See what happens.
How do you compete with, we might make money? It's a very hard thing in business. Business has changed completely.
So just finally, I mean, the wonderful thing about your job is it's only ever going to get busier, only ever the rest of it here. Why is there a drone on the desk?
Well, you know, 10 years ago, you couldn't fly a little drone that was the size of a smartphone over the local park and get beautiful pictures of waterfalls and beaches and things like that. Now, this thing's $600 and it's up in the air and it's all controlled with your smartphone. I mean, the drone thing had a real peak. It was not quite like 3D TV, but you know, had a massive peak. But now it's just found its space, and they're a great consumer thing for.
But also not. I mean, they're not as scary as sort of, to be honest, the first and second generation of them. Where the fact that it's that small, it looks good, it's cute. You don't need to.
I think they've found their purpose. You know, if you want to, you know, if you're going on a holiday in the bush, I've got to tell you, taking a drone is an amazing thing because, you know, looking at the land from above is something you've never done before, and it's just spectacular. So it's a great little thing.
So as a band who reviews this many products, and this is just a little sample, right?
Yes.
Do you keep them all or do you recycle? Because 10 years worth of stuff.
I've got a lot of stuff at home, but it's for my museum purposes. If I didn't keep the iPhone, how would I bring it to you right here in Port?
Correct. I was going to say, who's allowed to come round to the museum?
No, that's right. Well, you're welcome any time, but
I know.
It's under lock and key. But, I've got a lot of stuff.
The Trevor Long Museum of Technology, not available to the public. It's a special archivist thing.
Yes.
That was the phones 10 years ago, and they were awesome then. Trevor, Merry Christmas.
Pleasure, mate. Merry Christmas.
I love you, brother. Get his website, EFTM, where he's also written up about the death of the Commodore, which is a very sad day today. And I noticed, by the way, that was on the homepage of the iPad from 10 years ago.
There you go.
Jeez, how did they know 10 years ago what the story would be in 2019? Love you, brother.